So, dear friends, good evening. We'll start with today's session. We are discussing regarding the Kant's philosophy, the examination of the patient, and he has devoted 4 chapters for examination of the patient. We have finished 2 of them. The 23 and 24 we have finished. 25, 26 is still we have to finish. Today we're going to start with the 25th chapter, the examination of the patient, where he has elaborated the importance of aphorism 92 as explained by Dr. Samuel Hahnemann in the 6th edition of Organon of Medicine. So let us start with the chapter number 25, the examination of the patient continued. Aphorism 92. The patients generally call attention to the commonest things, while it is the strange and peculiar things that guide to a remedy. The symptoms most covered up from the observation of the physician are often the things guiding to the remedy, but finally they leak out in some way. So whenever patient comes to you, they generally talk in common sense. Patient comes to you and says he's having headache or she's having headache, he's having fever, he's having pain in abdomen. They never give you the details which you require for the homeopathic prescription. This is too important. But generally, these are hidden, and when you deal with the patient properly, you gradually gets all those things. They automatically comes out while dealing with the patient, and those are very important points. So he explains over there, they leak out. He has used the word very nicely, but finally they leak out in some way. The symptom is of such a character that the patient says of it, I have always had it, and I did not suppose that had anything to do with my disease. When asked, why did you not tell me that before? She says, I did not suppose that amounted to anything. It is so trivial. And there are many symptoms which are hidden, which are there with the patient since long time. And patient feels it is as a routine. They feel that there is nothing important for the prescription, and that hides those features. Those are called to be an accessory symptom by anyone. I did not suppose that amounted to anything. It is so trivial. The physician often hazards a remedy. He feels he must make a prescription, but has no reasonable ground for thinking he has found the remedy, because the patient's story has been so confusing, and the symptoms that he has obtained are so common and ordinary, such as all remedies possess. With such foundation, he cannot have any assurance that he has the remedy. And although he may have hazarded several remedies in the case, the patient comes back uncured months after month and year after another. These symptoms that are withheld and seems to be so obscure and so difficult to obtain are the very ones that the patient thinks do not amount to anything. So he is giving that if you don't get such characteristic symptoms in the case, and if you start prescribing on common symptoms, then you go on giving one remedy, second remedy, third remedy, fourth remedy, and patient is not getting cured. He returns to you again and again with this many futures, same future. Unless and until you get the prescribing symptom, the characteristic symptom, individualizing symptom, it is not possible to get the result. What seems to him to be little symptom are very often characteristic of the disease and necessary for the choice of the remedy. Many times such symptoms which patient feels are small important, but they are, for homeopathic point of view, they are always important to get the individuality. Let me illustrate it. A patient comes along with a pallid face, a rather sickly countenance, tired and weary, subject to headaches, disorder of bladder, and disturbances of digestion. And in spite of all your questioning, you fail to get anything that is peculiar. You set the patient to thinking and to writing down symptoms. And she comes back months after months. You give her sulfur, lycopodium, and good many remedies, medicines. You can sometimes find out whether she is chilly or hot-blooded patient. And thus you can get a little closer among the common remedies. But the patient says one day, doctor, it seems strange that urine smells so pure, it smells like that of horse. Now at once you know that it is nitric acid. How long have you had this? Oh, I have had always had it. I did not think it amounted to anything. If you examine the common things belonging to the nitric acid, you will find that it possesses all the features of the gas. He has given very good example of it. So patient comes to you with common features and you prescribe many remedies and not getting result. And one of the day patient says, my urine is so strong smelling, it smells like horses. And now you get that characteristic. That is the characteristic of nitric acid. You know that. You mugged it n number of times. And now you get the remedy and you open the remedy and find all those common features are there also in the nitric acid. But this is the characteristic on the basis of which you are going to prescribe the nitric acid. And this is what he wants to explain over there, that these symptoms which patient has had since long time and he get acquainted with it, but he doesn't feel that they are important from your point of view, are the symptoms called as accessory symptoms, and they are important from for prescribing, or they are having prescribing value. This is how a guiding symptom can be used. Nitric acid has keynote, urine smelling strong like that of horse, but if you should give it upon that alone, and the general symptoms were not there, you would probably remove the particular symptoms only, and they would come back after a while. Use a keynote to examine the remedy to see if it has all other symptoms that the patient has. What I have described to you is a hypothetical case. In a busy day, you will have several of these cases that you have been working at for months and the patients have spent a lot of money to no account. You might just as well have given Saclac until you found the right remedy. You can hardly say, why did I not see the remedy before? Because it was not possible to see it. So unless and until you get something characteristic, something unique, something which has a individualizing value, you cannot come to the right remedy. With vague symptoms, with common symptoms, you are nowhere. You cannot find it out the right choice. And this happens many times in our practice, that we never get such types of characteristics. And once you get the remedy, and then you eat the patient. You might just as well have given Saclax until you find the right remedy. You can hardly say, why did I not see the remedy before? Because it was not possible to see it. We can only go to over a case and say, why did I not ask if there was anything odor to the urine? And if so, what it was like. I have had this very symptom come out when I have asked a dozen times about the smell of urine and they did not know. And it would say afterwards that urine smelled like a horse's urine and they knew it all the time. On the other hand, the patients are so accustomed to their long suffering that they pay little or no attention to the lesser symptoms, which are often characteristics of the disease and decisive in regard to the choice of treatment. And this happens many times in our practice. We get only the vague symptoms. And when we ask patient and patient never tells anything, and one of the day he says, yes, I had such and such symptom. So this happens many times. I was treating a case of migraine long time, and patient was temporarily better, again recurring every time. And one of the days she was laughing, and I'm saying, I said, why you are laughing? She said, sir, I want to tell you something, but you will laugh at me if I will tell you. Then I asked, what is wrong with you? And she said, every new moon and full moon, I get the headache, and it starts from here and then it settles over the head, either on right or left side. And then I laughed at her. If you would have told me this one year back, then I would have cured you 1 year back. It was silicea. So this happens many times in our practice that patient hides such things which they feel they are not of importance, or they feel that they are such a thing that people will laugh at, and that's why they never tells you. This happens many times in our practice, and we cannot go to the right remedy because of such a thing. Of course, the trouble that we have to contended with in ascertaining symptoms from the patient could be drawn out to great length. You might suppose that it would be the educated class that would tell their symptoms best, but you will find the ignorant class often do better. They are simpler. They do not disguise the symptoms. They come out and tell the little details in better way, in a way that conforms to the language of our remedy. And he is giving you that if the educational patient comes to you, who is learned, many times they hide their symptoms. They because they utilize their intelligence and think that it is not, these are symptoms which are not better to explain. But if ignorant comes who doesn't have knowledge, and he comes and he plainly tells whatever has had, whatever he has, and he gives you details, and those are very important from your point of view, and he never hides anything. And this is what Kent says, and this is the truth. Yes, in your practice, this happens many times that you get the symptoms, such types of symptoms, which are from the ignorant very easily, but not from the educational peoples. Our remedies have been recorded in simple language to a great extent, and this simple language is often better observed by simple minded and uncultivated people than among the aristocrats. So this is what happens many times. Aristocrats means the people who are learned and they feel they are very high class people, but they hide many things. They never gives you what you actually require in order to prescribe. So you never get the prescribing symptom from there. But from the ignorant, from the peoples at the village who have not learned, they comes to you and they gives you details and which helps you a lot. Any physician who has reputation is consulted for chronic case, and the patient who has plenty of money goes around amongst the doctors, and when he comes to tell his symptom, he tells them in the technicalities of his numerous physicians, so that when he has finished his story, nothing has been gained. And this is the story of every omega. People comes nowadays, this is more common. People comes and they have read all things on Google and they talks in technical language. Doctor, I have had SLE. What is the use? You tell me you have SLE because you are not going to get a remedy on SLE. My suggestion is that what is your problem? And he considers that my problem is SLE because it has been told to him. Then you have to ask what are the symptoms with which you are suffering. Tell me that. Don't give me the name of your disease. I know your disease, but I don't want to treat your disease only. I want to treat you. Unless and until you tell this to your patient, you will not going to get the details. And this is what happens many times. Only gradually can the physician lead him back to a language simple enough to describe the suffering. They who have been sick long with their chronic ailment and have become somewhat hypochondriac will go through with this list of their diseases. They have paid lots of money and have lots of names and they are loaded with drugs. The physician must deal very carefully with these slippery people because if they are irritated, they will run off. And this is what happens many times in our practice. These people comes with their knowing their names of diseases, but that name is not important from your point of. There are many people who comes tells you I have such and such huge disorder. Doctor, do you know that? They examines you whether you know that. Actually, you have to tell yes, you know that, but I don't want that name of your disease. I want what from what you are suffering from. Unless you get that, you cannot get a right remedy. You have to explain to the patient. Our remedy depends not on your name of the disease. Our remedy depends what you are suffering from, what is the characteristic that unless and until I get that, it is not possible to give a remedy. And then in aphorism 96, what is said? There is another kind of patient spoken of here, those that depict their sufferings in lively colors and makes use of exaggerated terms to induce the physician to relieve them promptly. This is especially characteristic of native Irish as a class. You will find that they will exaggerate their symptoms really and sincerely, believing that the doctor will give them stronger medicine if they are very sick and will pay more attention to them. And if they do not exaggerate violently, probably he will turn them off with simple remedy. So this is opposite. The some symptoms, some people who hide the symptom, and another group of patients are there who will going to exaggerate their symptoms. They always exaggerate so much that you cannot find the right remedy. They goes on telling you exactly the symptoms in such a way that you go to some other remedy because of their exaggeration. I had a one case patient who was my teacher earlier in childhood, and he came to me for chronic rhinitis. I have given him remedy, and for follow-up, when he returned, actually he was settled, but it was early in my practice in 1993-94. And I asked him, sir, how are you? And he said, Prasad, they are no result, and I'm having so much of coryza, I'm having sneezing and everything, and only one day I felt better, etc. So I increased the potency. I find it out remedies same, I increased the potency. And next day he had an aggravation and he returned back. Then he told, what you have given me? Yesterday I was good and because of your medicine it is aggravated. I asked him, you told me that you are not better. No, I was better, but I felt that you will give me a stronger medicine. Then I said, yes, I have given you stronger medicine because of which you have suffered. This happens many times. And these things you have to find it out. People who exaggerate their symptoms, you can catch it. You should catch them. If you catch them, then you will find it out the reality, the truth. Then we have the exaggeration of symptoms by sensitive people. It is an insane habit. It is an insane habit. Such a belong to hysteria. The physician will helpless in the hands of these exaggerators because homeopathy consists in securing the whole truth and nothing but the truth. It is just as detrimental to get too much as to get too little. Any coloring that is expressed, whether by the patient or by the physician, will result in failure. It is true that this tendency to exaggeration must be considered as a symptom. When you have found a patient to exaggerate a few symptoms into a large number, you can simply mention in your note tendency to exaggerate symptoms, which is covered by some of our remedy. Such a state is misleading, and for you do not know what symptom the patient has and what patient has not. So such thing happens you when anyone exaggerates symptoms. You don't know what is real symptom and what is he is exaggerating. At that time you write it on one side, it looks exaggerating, and just check confirmly whether patient is telling you the truth or not. Such a state is misleading, for you do not know what symptom the patient has and what the patient has not. You may rest assured that no patient without symptoms would consult the physician, and patient would not be likely to manufacture the entire sickness. The fact that she has a desire to present herself to the physician and has a desire to exaggerate her symptoms and suffering is in itself a disease. Because no well person would do that. Hence, this must be considered. Perhaps it is the first and only element that can be considered of that which such patients give over. This exaggeration must be measured with discretion and wisdom. So what he is explaining? He is explaining in such types of cases, you have to find it out what is the fact. Then you ask, what is your first symptom? How the suffering has started? And then you just check and recheck, and then you will get exactly the what the patient is suffering from, what he is explaining, what is actual symptom and what is false symptom, everything you can. This exaggeration must be measured and discretion with discretion and wisdom. Then you have to use your intelligence, your wisdom. Even the most important hypochondriac never invents suffering and symptoms that are void of foundations. And truth of this is easily ascertained by comparing the complaints he utters at different intervals, while the physician gives him nothing at least that is medicinal. In such types of patient, to start with the case is always better to give the placebo. If you give them placebo, then that placebo is better way. Then patient comes again, and then you can check and recheck what are the features which is explained. Hahnemann Hahnemann's plan would be to give no medicine and to compare the symptoms that the patient gave from time to time. The patient cannot memorize these various symptoms that he has gathered from other sources, but by watching and comparing from time to time, letting the examination be far enough apart for him to forget, the physician can accept those things that he repeats. So Hahnemann says that wait for some time, give the placebo, ask the patient to come back. And every time he comes, write it down, whatever the symptoms. Then you will find, because patient can never memorize what symptoms he has told first time. Only the symptoms, real symptoms will be repeated. Other symptoms, they are fake symptoms, will not be repeated. And then you will find what is the exact symptom of the patient. The young physician will be misguided by these cases until he has had sufficient experience with the disease to know something about the nature of symptoms that ought to appear. And this happens many times. For the newcomers, these symptoms always um, makes a confusion, and they goes on prescribing on each and every symptom patient told by the patient. So here you have to be very careful and watchful what exactly patient wants to tell and what exactly the patient's real symptom is. We'll finish one more paragraph. Another obstacle we have in the examination of case is laziness. The patient is too lazy to write down the symptoms when they appear and too indolent and forgetful to remember them in presence of physician. So it is always better ask the patient to write down all symptoms so that you can get the details. But certain patients who are indolent or lazy, they never writes it down. That is their actual symptom. They are indolent, they are lazy. The symptoms do not come up in his mind when he is in the presence of doctor and he is too indolent to write these symptoms down when he feels them at home. And he forgets all those things. He never writes it down properly and you never get what you desire. When a patient does not relate symptoms well, he should be instructed to write down his symptoms when they occur. And if he will not do that, his physician should insist upon it or refuse to prescribe for it. And he is saying that in such patients who are not following you, tell them that you should not take the treatment. Refuse their treatment. So this is too important. It is often quite an important thing to get the patient to write down symptoms in memorandum form as they occur. Not to write at night what has occurred during the day, but to run instantly and put the symptoms down in simple language, describing the sensation and location and the time of the day of its coming and going and the modality. So you ask the patient, write it on a page, whatever the symptoms you get, at the same time, so that you can get exactly what are the symptoms and you can get it always. Indolence, the then and forgetfulness becomes obstacle to the gathering of the symptoms. So if the patient is indolent, forgetful, you cannot get those symptoms. Then you write down indolence as his symptoms or forgetfulness as his symptoms. So he's explaining all minute details what can happen in case taking. and he is guiding you how to go ahead with such types of patient. Indolent patient, what to do. For exaggerating patients, what to do. Every detail he is mentioning over there and which has a value. So we'll stop over here. Tomorrow we'll continue and finish this chapter in tomorrow's session. Today there is no session. Tomorrow we'll have a Madras Medical session. So that's all for today. Thank you being there. We'll meet again tomorrow. Thanks a lot.